When the Berlin Wall fell in November 1989, Dr. Condoleezza Rice rushed into the Oval Office immediately to see President George H.W. Bush. At the time, she served as President Bush's Director of Soviet and East European Affairs. And she knew all too well what the fall of the Berlin Wall really meant. Berlin would be united for the first time since 1945, and East Germany would be no longer a communist country. East Germany and West Germany would be one. Dr. Rice told Bush he needed to go to the Berlin Wall to make a statement. And she said he needed to go to represent all the presidents before him who pushed for the destruction of what was built in 1961, a concrete block wall nearly 14 feet high and topped with barbed wire. Right then, Rice learned an important lesson in leadership. When Secretary Rice came to campus recently to speak to our graduates, she and I talked about that important lesson in front of a live audience, later broadcast on PBS. It's a lesson in leadership we all need to remember.
We said, you must go to Berlin for Kennedy and for Reagan and for all the American presidents, for Truman, who've waited for this day. And he said, what would I do? Dance on the wall? He said, this is a German moment, not an American one. And I learned so much from him in that moment and about that president. He was not going to make it about him. He wasn't going to make it a moment of personal triumph. This was a German triumph. We had a chance then to actually unify Germany. I was on the White House representative on the team that did German unification. And I remember on July 1st, when finally, on the way to German unification, all of the barriers came down, all of those guard posts that for years people had tried to flee through to get from East Germany into West Germany. And as my driver was German, taking me to the American embassy. And in the old days, the German driver had to get out, and an American driver would take over at the checkpoint and drive in. And they had told this German driver, now you can drive through. And as we approached, you could see he was getting more and more nervous. And then we went through. Not a guard, not a checkpoint, nothing. And he began to cry. He began to weep. And I thought, this is a great geostrategic moment, but it's also an amazing moment for these people, and that President Bush had been so right. It was a German moment, not an American one.
President Bush did not want it to make it about him. He wanted to give others, in this case the Germans, enough space to revel in their big moment. You see, President Bush applied the subtle yet substantial skill of restraint. It's an important skill. It's a skill that every leader needs to have in his or her life skills toolbox. It helps you get along with people. It helps you build bridges of understanding. It helps you become a person of influence and a leader of impact.